today we're doing 2 lunges to keep your psoas and hip flexors happy. Now, for many of us, our hip flexors and our psoas muscles are very, very tight. Now, what's your psoas? The psoas is a set of 2 muscles that connect from around T12 to L1, and it's deep and it runs on either side of the spine, running around, cuts across the front of your pelvis, and then inserts on your femur bone. So really, it's the only muscle that you have in your body that connects your spine to your legs. So if that muscle's tight, it's going to mess up the whole rest of your body. So here's 2 lunges that you can do daily to make your life happier and better. The first one we're going to do is a very kind of scaled back version of a traditional lunge. So take your left foot forward and your right knee back. You want to tuck your right toes underneath. And many of us might need to put something underneath that knee. So if you have a bolster or blanket, foam block, place it underneath that knee. And then once you're here, you want to line your pelvis over top of that knee. So shift back until you feel like your pelvis is over that knee. And then look at your pelvis. In fact, take your hands on the bones of your pelvis and run your fingers along the front until you feel 2 hip points. And those are your ASISs. And those are going to be your little pieces of your pelvis to see where you are in space. So you want to feel those ASISs, and once you start to feel the ASISs, you'll probably notice that one hip is a little bit further back and probably a lot higher than the other one. So what we want to do in this lunge is try to move the pelvis toward neutral as much as we can. So then that means you drop that left hip down, feel around, can you let the pelvis find a more neutral position. And then once you have that, you're going to keep your pelvis just as it is and start to shift the pelvis forward. And when I say shift the pelvis forward, you're only going a little bit, because the more forward we go, the more the pelvis starts to tilt. And we don't need to go that far. We want to keep the pelvis neutral. So I'm just moving the pelvis forward in space. I don't need to go very far until I start to feel a good stretch along that right hip flexor. And then stay here. Bring the ribs down. And keep checking in. Keep your hands on the pelvis, and you'll notice that probably pretty quickly that right hip or that left hip started to lift up. So drop it. Good, and then release, and we'll switch sides. Bring the right foot forward now, left foot, toes tucked, the knee underneath your pelvis. Remember, you can support the knee if you need to. Run your hands along the bones of your pelvis until you find your ASISs, your hip points. See what they're doing on this side. Does one side feel like it's a little bit more twisted, a little higher? And then find the place where they can feel like they're in the same plane, as close as you can. Once you've got that, then you start to shift the pelvis forward. Only until your pelvis doesn't go anywhere else. Don't let it shift down. Don't let it tuck too much. Keep the pelvis in neutral so that, again, you're getting a way healthier and way deeper opening and stretch into the hip flexor and the psoas. Ribs down. Breathe. And then release. Good. And you'll want to do these for a little bit longer. This is just a short little demo, so I'm just showing you quickly, but I recommend holding these lunges as long as it feels good for you. Now the next lunge is going to be sort of a tweaking on an old familiar lunge. So if you're a yoga practitioner, you're probably quite familiar with the high lunge. But we're going to make the high lunge more effective and really get deeper into those hip flexors and psoas muscle. So go onto your hands and knees. Once you're on your hands and knees, let's take our left foot forward. Once you've got your left foot forward, stretch your right leg back a little bit, keeping the right toes tucked. Now, a traditional high lunge would just be lift the hips, stretch that leg back, and we get a pretty good stretch that way. But we're going to make this better. So drop the pelvis down. Spend a moment feeling the heaviness and the weight of the pelvis. Allow the weight of the pelvis to soften to the floor. Not shift back like this, but soften down. And then you keep the heaviness of the pelvis, and then you just bring your attention into your right thigh and your right knee, and you let the right thigh and the right knee lift the leg up off the floor without lifting the pelvis. So if you can see on me, here's with my pelvis helping out, and here's with my pelvis not helping out. So it doesn't look quite as high, but it feels quite a lot different. So this is going to get into some really deep, wonderful, quiet, forgotten muscle tissues. You'll feel it right away. And then exhale, release, and let's switch. You can come back onto the hands and the knees. Bring that right foot forward. Tuck the left toes underneath. And with the breath, just feel your pelvis heavy, relaxed. Keep that pelvis heavy and relaxed, and then bring your attention into your left thigh and your left knee, and start to lift the left thigh and the left knee up off the floor without letting the hips come up. So hips stay down, and I just bring that left leg up. It's pretty wonderful. And I highly recommend doing this version of the high lunge whenever you're doing a lunge. So if you're in a yoga class and the teacher asks you to do a high lunge like this, you'll know you can do it this way, keep the pelvis low and the knee lifted, and you'll get a lot more bang for your buck, and your psoas will thank you. And then exhale, release the knee. Come on out. And there you go. So I recommend doing those 2 lunges every day and hold them for a lot longer. Do at least 5 breaths or more to get some good benefits from these lunges. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.